Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to Next Level Athletes. I'm Peyton Anderson. Joining me today is Hank Brown Jr., Sioux Falls wide receiver. Hank, thanks for taking the time today and sitting down.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Starting even before your recruitment process and eventual commitment to Sioux Falls and beginning with your high school career, you were a multi-sport athlete at Dowling Catholic High School, where you competed in football, basketball, and track and field. Additionally, you saw yourself earn first team All District honors as a wide receiver, along with being named to the academic All State first team. Reflecting on your time in high school as a whole, what would you say were some of your fondest memories in the sports you played in, but also how being a multi-sport athlete helped you when transitioning to the college level?
Yeah, I mean, I say some of my best memories in high school, even though a lot of people say winning state champions and stuff, we
Hmm.
didn't win one during my time while I was there, and but I still feel like just the structure of everything, like from morning workouts to the workouts in the summer, like that kind of just helped prepare me for college, and then those memories that I made during those workouts with some of my friends that are still best friends, I'm still best friends with to this day. It's just
Hmm.
like that lifelong connection that that goes beyond the game of football. And that's probably one of my biggest things when it comes to the best things and stuff that I experienced in high school.
Hmm. And then with being a multi-sport athlete, kind of how did some things like did you use anything for different sports to help you when it came
Uh,
on the field?
yeah, so I mean, I played basketball my whole life growing up, and I feel like, especially as a receiver, like basketball translates a lot to the game of football. Whether it's
Hmm.
releases or cutting, like it all, I feel like translates pretty well. Just with getting used to the feel of manipulating your body in certain positions to get the defender to think you're going one way and you're going the other way. And so I just feel like basketball has played like a big part into how I play the game as a receiver. And then
Hmm.
obviously like ran track too. I mean, track is one of those things like it's going to help you in everything you do, regardless if like you're not the fastest on the track. Like when it comes to other sports and when you run track, just taking that technique, it just really helped me elevate my game even more.
Hmm. Would you say that the stamina piece of it kind of helped too, depending on what
Yeah,
you ran?
yeah.
Absolutely. Looking back into your recruitment process as a whole, you saw yourself receive offers from programs such as Upper Iowa, Grand View, Graceland, Sioux Falls, and some others. You ultimately end up at Sioux Falls, located in South Dakota. What about the program stood out to you most from the others?
Uh, to be honest with you, I say just like the coaches and everything, like they basically because they high school, my senior year in high school, they were coming off a 3-8 season, whole new coaching staff and everything.
Hmm.
Talking through them throughout the whole process on how they told me straight up of we didn't have our best year last year without a doubt, but it's where we're going, and we think
Hmm.
you can help us be a part of that movement and benefit to our movement. And it's just something that I really just thought about, and I was like, yeah, that's something I want to put myself in, buy into the program, and
Hmm.
just from there, just take off.
Um, in addition to that, did you have any doubts throughout your recruitment process? And if you were to do it over again, is there anything you might want to pay more attention to, or kind of like questions you might ask? Would you change anything?
Um, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say I had doubts at times. I
Hmm.
feel like, either way, it was God's plan. I was going to end up where He wanted me to be. So I was just really just trusting that. There was times where it got a little cloudy and stuff. Like I'm not gonna
Hmm.
lie, there was times where I wasn't talking to as much schools or schools weren't hitting me back. But it's just one of those things. Just trusting His plan. And which ultimately, it all fell through right, and I wouldn't regret it or change anything about the journey.
Absolutely. Moving forward into your 2024 freshman campaign, you appeared in all 11 games while making immediate impact for the team. You caught 16 passes, ran the ball 4 times, returned 11 kicks. Starting with the football side of things, what would you say went well for you throughout that season? Seeing that the program went 8-3 overall with a 7-3 conference record.
I say like some things that overall went well for me, like coming in, because I didn't come in till fall camp. I didn't go for summer workouts or anything. So I showed up, I think it was like the first week of August,
Hmm.
just come with open arms, like all the team, like all my teammates and stuff, everything open arms. I feel like that just helped me as a whole, really just, going there with the confidence that, I had already had within myself, but just like it kind of reaffirmed it in a way, to where I didn't really have to think at all. Like when it came to like the playing aspect of things, I felt like I was just able to go out there and play free, and end of the day, like, I mean, it just tips fell where they were, and I got to play my whole freshman year.
Hmm. Looking, more off the field, was there anything that was more difficult for you to adjust to, whether that be balancing academics with team meetings, lifts, whatever else that may be? Um, would you do? Did you say you had any difficulty kind of managing all that in the beginning?
Uh, I wouldn't say it was necessarily difficult, but it was for sure new. Like especially
Hmm.
with the college schedule of things, you got a lot more free time than you would in high school. So just you know keeping that discipline and stuff. Just to make sure you stay on top of your schoolwork because you have nobody telling you like your
Hmm.
parents to do stuff, but
Yeah.
just make sure just holding that standard for myself to stay disciplined in everything I do.
Um, Kind of on that topic, did you develop or have some sort of routine that, kept you balanced throughout the year? Especially, because, you're obviously prioritizing football, academics, but also, you got your family and friends. Did you have some sort of routine or kind of like schedule almost where you're like these days were dedicated to this? Or did you just kind of like take it how it was?
I kind of took it how it was. Um, like ever since I was little, like the day I would get my homework, I would always finish it that day just to get it out the way. So that's something that's kind of like always stuck with me. So in
Hmm.
terms of homework stuff, like that really wasn't a problem for me. But like when it came to studying for tests and stuff, like so my freshman year we had study hall like how most
Hmm.
colleges do, and I say just like that just really helped me, when it came to tests and stuff, like setting aside those 2 hours twice a week,
Hmm.
every week on Tuesdays and Thursdays really just helped me, just manage the, things with school and stuff like that.
Looking at that season as a whole, what was your biggest takeaway, or what did you kind of learn most about yourself from that year?
Looking back at that season, like as a whole, like from a team perspective, that's when I really like, okay, like, like it was after like the first couple of games, we went, I think it was either 3-0 or 4-0 off the bat. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, like these coaches, like they were serious about turning the program around. So that really enticed me to like, I was already fully bought in, but it just really like it made me
Kind of
a believer.
elevated it.
Yeah, like we could go do something, and then just off of that, like just what I learned personally from myself was, just like the game really ain't that different from high school to college. Like at least in my opinion, I know some people feel like um it might be a little bit of a speed change for them, but
Hmm.
coming in, I mean, the biggest thing I had to do, especially as a receiver, was just get the playbook down. And once I developed the confidence with the plays and everything, I felt like I was just able to, play my game.
Absolutely. Would you say kind of the playbook was the change in the playbook? Would you say kind of the biggest shift for you, kind of in terms of like getting yourself adjusted to college?
Yeah, yeah. Um, it was for sure a lot more verbiage and stuff, but
Hmm.
able to like create patterns, in my head and stuff, like to lock on to certain plays and stuff, which ultimately like it just helped me just click way better. I'm pretty sure I got it down within like the
Hmm.
first 1 or 2 weeks within learning it.
Awesome. Transitioning into your 2025 sophomore campaign at Sioux Falls, the program saw itself finish 7-4 overall with a 6-4 conference record. You saw yourself emerge as one of the top playmakers in the NSIC, racking up 83 receptions for 979 yards and two touchdowns. In that season, you earned first team honors, second team Super Region recognition, and named a Dave & Buster's USF Athlete of the Week. First off, what was the difference maker or change in your first season to your second season? What made that jump possible?
I say so. My biggest thing, like coming in, was just learning the playbook. So I was focused on the whole season, like just worrying about the playbook, making sure I have the right play. And my off season going into my sophomore year, that's when I really started to, I started to sit down with my wide receiver coach and my OC talking about coverages and stuff, like really learning the true ins and outs of the game, beyond
Hmm.
just it's me versus him, the zones, all that stuff. And I feel like, getting a good feel and, learning some things from my OC and my wide receiver coach, like it really just made the game slow down that much even more, when you can manipulate a defender's coverage based off the zone that they're covering and stuff, and just overall just made it easier for me.
Absolutely. Um, when taking a look into this upcoming season, what part of your technique and skill as a wide receiver are you most looking to elevate and take the next step in?
Um still Still, fine tuning everything within my game. That's something you can always do, and that's something that like I pride myself in is just you know getting the things right, especially the little details to where not that I can only get them right once or twice, but to where I can never get them wrong.
Hmm.
Whether it's routing, catching, all that, and then just continuing to fine tune like the mental aspect of the game as well. Whether it's coverages or learning blitzes, fronts, like stuff like that, just to overall just make me a better football player overall. So like I won't see it from a wide receiver aspect of things, but also
Hmm.
being late to the quarterbacks aspect of things or the running backs aspect of things, even the line, just based on the front and everything. So
Hmm. Taking a deeper look into the program, you have a coaching staff that's led by Jim Glogowski, who previously spent time at Minnesota State. He also spent time at Allegheny College, and at Clarion and at Augustina. How would you describe Jim's approach to the game in the field, but also what he prioritizes and emphasizes of yourself and others representing the program off the field?
Coach Blow, that's my guy. I feel like, you know, just from a head coach standpoint, he's exactly like who you would want as a head coach. He helps us, especially as football players, understand, because he played the game as well, just how much, like, yes, the game's important, but, there's stuff bigger than the game as well. When it
Hmm.
comes to like practice and stuff, yes, we're going to practice hard. He's going to push us. He prides himself on making this team, one of the most physical teams and, disciplined teams in the league, and, that's something that I really just, you know, I really respect it in a way. And, it's something that, I look forward to playing for. And, it's something that, I want to uphold that standard every time I go out on the field. And then just from the, like, beyond the football side of things, I know I can go talk to him with whatever, and he's going to give me his best word and advice when it comes to, whether I'm stuck in something with school or if I got something that's, outside of school and football that
Hmm.
I just need to talk with. He's just somebody I know I can trust.
Would you say that that was, kind of a key factor in originally committing to Sioux
Yeah,
Falls?
yeah. Like me and my dad sat down with him and had a talk on my official, and we just both got that vibe. Like he's a real
Hmm.
straight up dude. You know,
Yeah,
we respected him from the jump. And just was like, I feel like this is the place that I need to be.
absolutely. Following up, your coach, you have Kevon Lucas as your assistant coach for the wide receivers on the team, entering his second year in the program. Um, Kevon was a former NFL wide receiver for the Eagles, along with playing in the CFL. for the Edmonton Eskimos and playing in the German Football League's Potsdam Royals. In addition to this, he launched 2 Mile Movement, a business dedicated to training and mentoring athletes of all ages. How would you say Kevon's experience playing in various leagues um, benefited, the program so far, not on the field but off the field? How has that variety kind of transferred over to Sioux Falls?
I mean, it honestly helps, like, as from a receiver aspect of things, him coming in and developing us as a whole room. We're getting to learn from somebody who did it at the highest level. He went to the league. Spent a couple years overseas, so he's seen every level of football. From college to pros to overseas. And just getting his perspective on things and stuff, and
Hmm.
then learn tips and tricks from him. I just feel like you know it's not only beneficial to us as wide receivers, but the team as well, who have those aspirations of going to the next level with things.
Absolutely. Kind of on top of this, what about his philosophy as a receivers coach do you most resonate with? But also, how is he able to get you guys game ready and, buy into what the program prioritizes most in its core values? Even, in the beginning when, you know, coming in, it was after a 3-8 season. How has he been able to kind of get you guys to buy into what the program is, its core values?
Mhm. Um, you know, to be honest, like for all of us, like him just being straight up with us, keeping everything like, real with us. That was
Hmm.
something that really like that's all it took for me to buy in. Cause if you can be straight up with me, not lie or anything, like that's really all you need to do, like to make me buy into something, because especially hearing it from him who did it at the highest level, like it's kind of that plays that thing of listening to the elders on their way back, who have already experienced those things, and just learning from him and learning from people that, he's learned from as well, him teaching us those teachings as well.
Absolutely. Kind of looking in the world of NIL, it's really skyrocketed. The way programs determine their rosters and the transfer portal have significantly increased in volume, let alone the stress of managing it all. What are your overall thoughts about the NIL world? Is there anything you changed about it? But also how you kind of stay grounded, when everyone online, may appear wrapped up in all the highlights, followers, and money. I know that I'm, an outsider kind of looking in on it, but how do you kind of stay grounded knowing that, guys are getting this, that, and, not getting lost in that?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like NIL is good. You can represent, you can make your own brand for yourself, like just how my wide receiver coach does. Like he has this 2 mile mentality, and I
Hmm.
feel like that's good not only as like a player and for the game of football and stuff, but just overall for life as well. Like the game of football for every person that plays it will end someday. It's that impact that you make and that image that you create for yourself that really matters because it's going to carry you way further than the game of football was. So I feel like being able to promote yourself through name, image, and likeness, like that's really good. And when it comes to like the money aspect of things, I mean, at the end of the day, like you have to earn that money for yourself, regardless if like you got the offer out of high school, and or
Hmm.
if you started off at a small school and then went to a bigger one, like and that you still have to put in the work for yourself. So it's kind of one of those things like I just view it as like you earned it type of thing. It
Hmm.
didn't just come like freely, you still had to put work in to get it.
Hmm. Kind of in a, following up, for younger generations coming up, obviously, I'm only 24, and in middle school, it seemed like social media wasn't around as much as it is now. Kind of in general, what kind of advice or kind of thoughts would you have to share with younger generations coming up, when they enter that kind of world of social media and, you know, sponsorship opportunities, all that? Is there anything you'd want to share?
I say just don't remember like what you come from, that thing that hunger that had you, playing the game of football, wanting to make it to the highest level. Like just don't forget that even when money is being thrown your way, don't just don't change. You know, keep doing you. You know, it's only going benefit you, and things are only going to go up.
Absolutely. Getting into our next segment, kind of this or that opinionated questions. Our first one, would you rather play in snow or extreme heat?
Heat, heat, because the snow be making the ball wet. Then you got to
Yeah.
take your gloves off. You know, and it just overall just your fingers get cold, jam fingers, and stuff like that. So heat.
Yeah. Harder position, wide receiver or corner?
Uh I'm gonna say corner, but like
Hmm.
there's also wide receiver has its challenges too, you know. But I'm gonna say corner just because they got to do everything backwards. Like they got
Yeah.
to guard guys while backpedaling, being able to break while backpedaling. You know, not even knowing the route, just reacting. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna say
Well, if you're eating mac and cheese, are you putting ketchup on it, or is that a no-go?
nah, nah. I just eat my mac and cheese how it is, you know.
Nice. Most overrated candy.
Uh, I'm gonna say I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Nerds and cotton candy, both of those. I
Okay.
I feel like cotton candy, like regardless of the flavor, like it just tastes the same every time. And then I feel like it's just like I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like little sugar pebbles, like, and it's just
So
something
it's kind
that
of like clouds almost, but then your hands are
yeah,
all sticky after.
yeah. It's just something that I just really just never liked growing up as a kid. You know that all my friends would like, they would die for it. So
Yeah. The best TV show to binge.
uh, I've honestly been watching like the quarterback series and the wide receiver series on Netflix. I just
Okay.
feel like it's something that I could binge watch all day.
Hmm. If you had to delete every app on your phone except for three, what stays?
Um, I'm gonna say message,
Okay.
uh, YouTube,
Okay.
and then probably either either probably Instagram. Yeah, actually, no, I'm gonna go Instagram. Yeah, Instagram.
Okay. So we got no games on the phone. We
Nah,
got it
I don't
straight.
really play games as much.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. What's one sports opinion you'll defend forever, no matter what anyone tells you?
MJ is the goat.
I'd have to agree with that one. What is a food combo people judge, but you think is actually elite?
Uh, I don't know if it's necessarily judged, but like I've been doing it since a little kid because a
Hmm.
couple of kids do it too. Like it was just something that we always grew up doing was the fries and a frosty from Wendy's. Like
Okay.
dip the fries in frosty. It's something that I've always liked since a little kid.
Nice. Start, bench, or cut. All these guys are in their prime. You have Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, and Julio Jones.
Um, that's hard. I'm not gonna lie.
I know it is tough.
I'm gonna start Randy.
Okay.
Yeah, and then bench Calvin and cut Julio. Julio's
Okay.
crazy. It's prime though, but
Hmm.
those two are like they're some of the best to do it. So
Yeah. What's worse, getting mossed or getting trucked?
Moss, Moss, yeah. I mean, you're on the big screen when you get Moss. Truck,
Yeah.
you can sometimes like
You can survive that a little bit,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. Especially if the guy's like way bigger than you. But Moss, I mean, that's just mano y mano. So
yeah. Most toxic fan base in sports.
I don't even know. To be honest, I've heard some stuff, just from my friends being at
Hmm.
college and stuff. Uh,
For me, I always go Eagles or something. Like Eagles, I
yeah,
feel like no matter what they do,
yeah,
they're gonna be
yeah,
pissed off. Like even
yeah,
if they win a Super Bowl 2 years in a row and they like just miss the playoffs the next year, fans are gonna like tear the streets regardless. I feel like.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then I
I
also
probably,
feel like any LA team, man. Like I feel like you could not even care, and you could be from LA, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm a Dodgers fan. It's like okay,
yeah. I feel the same way, honestly. Because after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, one of my friends is an Eagles fan. He still
hmm
had stuff to say about how the game went and was hating, like even yeah, just won a Super Bowl. So it's just one of those. I'm like, what are you talking about? But yeah, I
yeah.
probably said
Nice. And then last one before going to our next segment, what would you say is the best football rivalry in sports?
either Ohio State, Michigan,
Hmm.
or yeah, actually, yeah, I'm gonna go Ohio State and Michigan. That game's always,
No matter
since I
what.
was yeah, since I've been growing up, that game's always on the big screen, especially it's
Hmm.
like being displayed 2 weeks before the game even happens. So
Well, it's always promoted before the season. I mean, like they're guaranteed that they'll at least have a decent roster for each.
hmm hmm
Um, Looking into our next segment, kind of looking into life off the field. According to your team page, you're an undeclared major. Is there anything in particular you're interested in or potentially wanting to pursue as a future later in your life?
um I'm thinking about sports marketing, and eventually like when the game is done for me, something that I think I would like to do is either continue the coaching world, go into the coaching world of things, or become like a GM for either a college or professional team, something like within that aspect of things.
All right. All right. Looking more into those academics, you're one of 8 players named to the CSC Academic All District team in the 2025-2026 season. What did that accolade mean to you personally? But have you always prioritized your academics growing up?
Um it meant a lot to me, it just showed like how like, you know, being dedicated beyond the think side of football, it would all pay off regardless. Um and personally growing up, like academics has always been important for me. So like it wasn't really something that, I was overwhelmed about, like I went ecstatic over, because that's just like the standard that I hold for myself.
Hmm. Taking a deeper look into the Sioux Falls program, what does it mean to be a Cougar on a daily basis on and off the field? If you had to describe the program in its entirety using a one word or a phrase, what would it be and why?
Um, I'd say grit, just being able to, persevere through the daily ins and outs of life, because end of the day, stuff in life's gonna happen, good or bad, and just having the grit to persevere through it, I feel like that's what our football team embodies.
Absolutely. Um, you know, Kind of looking at you personally, when you wake up each morning and you're going to bed each night, who or what do you represent and honor, especially when you step out onto that field?
Family, my family for sure. Like, um, I represent my family just because of, my last name on my back, like when people look at me, they're obviously gonna know who I am, but they're also gonna want to find out like where I come from and stuff. And my biggest thing is just upholding that standard that my family has, created, and just you know, just really just representing, for my last name and my mom and my dad.
For sure. Um, Further adding on to being a part of the Sioux Falls program, in your personal opinion, what makes a locker room come together? Or in other words, what do you feel is absolutely necessary to have in a locker room in order, for everyone to be able to come together and kind of play in unison as one?
Feel like it has to be like Coach Glow says. He says, the locker room has to be a brotherhood instead of a neighborhood. We
Hmm.
shouldn't have cliques. in the locker room. Everybody should be able to, be cool with everybody, and just be able to be around and hang with each other. Even if you aren't on the, you're not as cool with them. Some people on your team as you are with others, but when it comes to football, like that should be your brother. Like you'll be willing to do anything for them. So I just feel like that plays a big part, and also just being a player led team. I feel like player led teams are some of the best ones when you look at some of the best teams that have stuck themselves in the record books.
Um, Kind of in as a follow up, what do you bring to the locker room, or what do you add to the culture at Sioux Falls?
I say I just had like, just a person who leads by example, and just, if anybody needs like an example of what to do or how to do something, like that's who I view myself as, and just that person that people can look up to, and just, you know, strive to be like me in a way. Everybody's gonna be their own self in a way, but when it comes to working hard and all that, I just want them to view me as somebody who's always working hard.
Absolutely. When speaking about training and repetition growing up, seeing you attended various football camps leading up to your recruitment, what would you say are the benefits or reasons why you should try and attend camps? Especially for those who may be on the fence of sending, their kids to certain camps. What would you say have been the biggest kind of benefits to attending camps, growing up?
I say honestly, just making those connections with the coaches. At the end of the day, like, whether it's a big D1 school or a little NAIA school, like just creating those relationships with those coaches, you don't know where they'll end up. Like,
Hmm.
especially the landscape of things of college football nowadays, just going there, having fun, obviously, showing out for yourself, and just making those connections, that, you know, could potentially last a lifetime, even if you don't go to the desired school that, you had went to the camp for.
Hmm. When talking about the game day atmosphere at Sioux Falls, how would you describe the environment, atmosphere, and the level of fan engagement when playing home games at Bob Young Field?
It's for sure exciting. It's always usually, pretty packed on every game, and just just the culture and everything, and fans and stuff like they love Sioux Falls football, and just it's just something that makes you feel like you're at home. Everybody's always welcoming. They're always willing to talk before or after the game. And just it's just a very welcoming, community.
Absolutely. Kind of like a follow-up question. Obviously you guys have team activities, kind of interacting with fans and, the general population. What would you say has been kind of your favorite, activity, that you've been a part of?
Um, Honestly, the kids camp, just being able to, give back to the kids, and just teach them a couple things, like I just really like that because, looking back on when I was a little kid, that's something that I always look forward to. So I kind of can put myself in those shoes, and especially when the little kids were out there.
Hmm. Um, on top of all this, tell us more about this yearly Key to the City rivalry game. What does it mean to play in this sort of rivalry game? But, what is the campus and fan life leading up to this game yearly?
Um, yeah, the key to the city's probably. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of other D2 rivalries, but if I had to compare,
Hmm.
it's probably against to like an Ohio State and Michigan. It's always like stamped on the calendar before, like a
Hmm.
year before. It's that game we both sides of both teams in the city have marked on the calendar. And just the build up for it. Fans all around the city. Whether or not like they're a Sioux Falls fan or Augustana fan. You know there's going to be like bickering between the two.
Hmm.
It's always going to be one of those things like when you're walking out to the stadium, whether it's at our home field or their home field, you're going to hear it from the opposing team. And it's just something that I honestly look forward to, and I just like it just because it just brings out the competitive side of me.
Absolutely. When talking about life in its entirety, when things may seem like at their absolute worst, what or who do you look to for guidance and remaining steady through the ups and downs in life?
Um, I look, I look to God. To be honest,
Hmm.
I my faith in God. I know He wouldn't put me through something that's not too hard for me to handle. It's just specifically for it's a problem that He knows I can handle with, and I'm gonna come out better than I was before. And then honestly, like somebody or people that I need to talk to, I'm calling my mom and dad, about it. I always take their word and everything, and I trust them, with anything when it comes to when I have questions through just the daily game of life.
Hmm. Kind of speaking more about your faith, when would you say you kind of, you first really started to get serious, in it, and how has it kind of shaped your mindset about life?
Um, I've always been like raised through my mom and dad, just having good faith, within the Lord, but I feel like when I really started to take it serious was like through my teens years, that's when I really
Hmm.
like started in it, and it's just something that, I just felt like a weight was lifted off of me, and it just made, I was less stressed with things and, and just, I was just able to play more free overall as well.
Hmm. Speaking more about, kind of your family upbringing, you grew up with mom and dad along with your two sisters. What significance have they carried throughout your life leading up to this point? But also the message you'd have for them if they were listening to this interview.
Um, they played a big part in my life, everything I do is for them, and, if they're listening right now, I say just, just thank you, and, without y'all, I would definitely not be where I'm at today, in terms of things that they have helped me with, from guidance to even the discipline part of things, just not sugarcoating things, so I'm just really appreciative of all y'all, and yeah, and I love y'all.
Awesome. Um, Seeing that your hometown is in Urbandale, Iowa, what would you say were some of your fondest memories growing up there? And also, if you had to take someone to your hometown, what place, whether that be restaurant, park, etc., would you take them and why?
Um Growing up, I say like some of my best memories were just just going to the field with my friends and stuff, riding our bikes around the whole neighborhood and stuff, just growing up, being up since the sunrise to then going home when the sun's, um, just spending all day outside, just relaxing and, playing with my friends. And if I had to take somebody to a place here, I'd say I'd probably just take them to, this field by my house that me and my friends would always go to, and just kind of where it developed the love for the game of football for me.
Awesome. Continuing on with your life growing up, is there anything you're good at that people wouldn't know about you unless you told them?
Um, Math. I say I'm pretty good at math. I don't know what it is. A lot of people struggle with math, but like
Hmm.
when it comes to me, like I don't know. It's just I'm good with numbers, and I can
Okay.
articulate things and stuff.
Nice. Although you are a rising collegiate athlete with a couple of seasons left in you before making the next major decision with your life, when everything is all said and done, how do you want others to remember you not only for, the athlete you were on the field, but just as importantly as a person off the field?
I just want to be remembered as somebody who always gave their all, and is a person that when you need a person who needs when you need a person for an example of things, you can look at me and be like, he led by example. That's who you would want to model it after, or that's who you would want to chase to be like, in your own way of things.
Absolutely. And kind of, wrapping up, why, regardless if you don't care about what people think of you or what they say about you. Just in general, why should someone take interest in you, especially if they're kind of an athlete? Um, but also what makes you unique or different from everyone else?
I just say like, you know, what kind of makes me different is just, my work ethic and discipline within things, you know, it's just one of those things that, I had never had like to question myself on my work ethic or anything. I know if I'm gonna have anything to my name, I want it to be, my work ethic, and I'm always gonna work hard. That's like something that I'm not willing to like let diminish my reputation on myself. If anybody's gonna say anything about me, whether good or bad, because I mean, at the end of the day, I really don't care what they have to say. I want
Hmm.
them to, without a doubt, be able to say, "Oh yeah, well, even though this, that, and the third, he's always gonna work hard. You don't ever got to doubt his work ethic and everything, and just another thing, like just a person who you know stands for something bigger than the game or the moment in life, somebody who cares about leaving something behind, whether or not it's accolades and stuff like that. I want to leave
Hmm.
like a legacy, whether it's some stats or anything, or just off the person I was, being able to come into the program, you know and then eventually, like, when it's all said and done, you can say, oh yeah, he came in and changed this program, like, just made my mark, not only from the sports side of things, but from the person side of things as well.
Absolutely. Once again, Hank Brown Jr., everyone, Sioux Falls wide receiver. Hank, really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk tonight. Wish you nothing but the best with your future. I'm excited to see what it has in store for you, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.